Throughout the years, publishers and developers have come and gone. Some made it to legendary status, while others flew under the general public's radar, but still managed to build cult followings. One such company, Vic Tokai, tried to replicate the best with often questionable results. Not all was bad. These are those games and their stories. Platform gaming. The fast, twitchy reaction, often rage-inducing genre that this game reviewer can't get enough of. There are more than 20 beloved titles I can name offhand that define the genre. There are times I come across one that, for one reason or another, I want to like, but I can't. And the Creon Conquest is at the top of that list. Allow me to explain. Area 1 does a great job of teaching the player how to use all the magic. Yeah, instead of unlocking powers like in Mega Man, you have it all from the start. No! So what they do is they set up situations to naturally teach you the function of each and how they'll be used. It's in the later half of the game you throw all those spells out of the window in lieu of just coasting through them with the broom. Outside of Area 1, there are no traps that require the freeze spell or anything, and the whole system just feels like a half-baked idea. Since none of the spells have a cost or take some sort of charge, there's nothing punishing you for pushing your way through the relentless barrage. Oh yeah, the constant dying. Anytime you die, it results in an instant game over. No continues are given to the player or can be earned. The Creon Conquest demands perfection from the player. Let me just take the time to mention that health drops are extremely rare. So here we have just another platforming game where your aim is locked down and you need to avoid enemies that come at you from all angles. Answerless! If you manage to make it to the end of an area, you'll go up against one of the game's bosses. These fights are a breath of fresh air. Learning the patterns and how to utilize the spells for each wave of attacks fires off the same sparks in your brain as fighting a boss in Mega Man. I want to like this game. Listen, it's not all bad. Some of the stages are rather enjoyable, just not crafted with the same love as other games that I'm not going to keep saying the name of. Get this! The Creon Conquest in Japan is called Magical Doropi. It features a full-fledged story, cutscenes in between stages, the death of a character, and, well, you can continue after a game over, which is the most important part. Was this, like, a result of artificial lengthening due to rentals? Probably. So I don't suggest picking up this game, not the North American copy at least. If you must play it, either import the Japanese version or, like, find a way to load up the translation patch or maybe buy a reproduction card or something, I don't know. I love the Shinobi series. These two games in particular. I feel Shadow Dancer is the best of the original slow-paced style of the Shinobi games. But Shinobi 3 picks things up with the ability to double jump, run, wall jump, and even block incoming shurikens. It's truly a masterpiece for the Sega, and what I thought was the pinnacle of the series' 2D roots. They tried their hand at adapting the game to 3D, and to be fair, those entries were met with a generally positive reception. Sadly, the idea was never revisited. In 2011, Sega would try rebooting the franchise exclusively on the 3DS with a game simply called Shinobi. The development was handled by Kryptonite Games, and honestly, it was a game I remember having fun with. Not something I would write home about, though. But in between Shinobi 3 and the game's first 3D outing was a little gem I hadn't heard about on the Sega Saturn, Shinobi Legions. This game almost didn't get a US release. Sega of America didn't feel that it was worthy of publishing. This baby only made it to American shores because of one company, Vic Tokai. They probably noticed that the game received overall good reviews and jumped at the chance to make a few bucks off the license. Oddly enough, Sega of Europe did publish the game, but under the name Shinobi X with a few changes, but now I'm getting ahead of myself. What could have been so bad that Sega of America banished it? For starters, the game sports digitized sprites, which we all know never age well. I'm sure they weren't concerned with future-proofing the game though. Despite the dated look, things blend together really nicely, and after some exposure, you won't even notice. That's particularly due to the fact that Shinobi Legions is a ton of fun to play. The controls are fantastic. No longer are shuriken, sword attack, and block mapped to the same button. In prior games, you'd have to get as close to an enemy as possible to engage in melee combat, or deplete your shurikens. In Revenge of Shinobi, you can only block when you pick up the POW icon, and in Shinobi 3, you'd have to hit and hold the attack button. This often meant wasting one of your shurikens. So having this split up across multiple buttons is simply a blessing and leaves gameplay feeling as smooth as butter. It also allows our hero to react much better. Speaking of hero, who's behind the mask this time? Our new hero is the ninja Sho. In short, he needs to save his sister Aya from their evil brother Kazuma. There is a lot more to the story, mostly displayed through awesome FMV cutscenes replicating old action movies. These things are cheesy and more than likely the only reason this game was slapped on a disc. There's cheesy bass lines, cheap effects, hokey acting, and people flying through boxes. This is what I'm talking about! Man, the cutscenes are awesome. Just give me a whole movie of that right there. On the other hand though, the stage design in Shinobi Legion doesn't try to cut too high. Much like previous games, there is a ton of ninjas trying to out-ninja your ninja. Levels pretty much play the same. You do a ton of platforming and killing, fight a boss, and you move on. What more do you need? It's just good simple fun. The one stage that kind of killed the flow for me is the underground cave. This whole section is on a minecart with some of that classy force scrolling that we all love. And you know, I wouldn't have a problem if the double jump wasn't so damn hard to pull off consistently. I just kept falling into the water and then eventually ran out of continues, which sucks because everything was smooth sailing. Sure, I could have used the stage select code, but that shouldn't be necessary. Point aside, I had enough fun with Shinobi Legions that I actually want to add it to my collection, but which version do I add? As I mentioned before, Sega of Europe made some changes before publishing. They deemed the soundtrack for the game to be mediocre and uninspired, so they opted in a soundtrack more akin to Yuzo Koshira's earlier work on Revenge of Shinobi. The new songs were composed by Sega veteran Richard Jacques. His music is featured in over 10 different games from the company, including some unfavorable ones. Here's a little comparison of the difference between the tracks on one stage. This is one of those games I played a ton of when I was a kid. Now, I don't know what happened to the cartridge. It just sort of vanished like things tend to do when you're younger, right? That wasn't just me. Socket, or Time Dominator First, as it's known in Japan, is often considered a Sonic clone. It features a blue duck who wears red and white shoes, and he runs fast. Aside from that, I really don't see it. Even the stage layouts seem nothing like they are in Sonic. The worlds are split up into 3 zones. Each one is a bit different than the last. The first zone is generally straightforward. You run through, gather all the electricity bolts, and you charge the time machine? Yeah, there's this crazy story about going back in time and creating some sort of paradox, but it really doesn't matter here. So instead of rings like Sonic, the health bar ties into energy pickups, and kind of feeds into the whole idea of socket and gives the collectibles meaning. When the health bar hits red, it starts to alert the player of low health, at the same time making their ears bleed. You know, for a game trying to copy the Sonic format, it doesn't promote a sense of speed. Sure, you can run fast, but the game loves to place enemies on the path or just block the player from making it up certain ramps. I mean, it is a video game, so there should be enemies, but this wouldn't be a problem in Sonic. All you had to do was roll into a ball. Here, you need to hope your kick attack lands. Best to take it nice and slow with this one, to be honest. The other areas in the game are steeped in platforming goodness. This is where the similar stage designs pop up. Moving platforms, stage hazards, and multiple layers with more than one path to finish a stage. It really doesn't skirt the obvious inspiration from Sonic's design. Yeah, look at those layers and layers of parallax scrolling. Maybe this is really just a big Sonic clone now that I'm breaking it down. I can see it now. The bright neon colors, tons of attitude with rad shoes, and a mascot that runs fast, and it's only on the Sega Genesis!